All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachak. Double honors to the apostles, and that is a great millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect. I'm the brother Ainat from GMS Atlanta. And just wanted to go into the topic of birthdays, man. There's certain instances in the scriptures where birthdays are mentioned, and it's not an Israelite custom, right? So if you believe or call yourself to be an Israelite, or even if you just believe in the Bible, and you say you believe in, the words that are written in the Bible to be true, right? You have to basically ask yourself, okay, where did the custom of birthdays come from, right? So the first scripture I'm gonna get is in Jeremiah chapter 2 verse 10. I'm sorry, chapter 10 verse 2, which we get this chapter going into Christmas trees because it goes into it, but I'll just get the second verse. All right, it says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them." All right, certain time of year, they'll attribute worship to certain gods that they made up, right? And they'll worship the sun and the moon and the stars. They'll create false gods, that pretty much they say are responsible for the different seasons and all that BS, right? We know that the Lord created all things. The scriptures talk about that in 1 Corinthians, the 8th chapter. All right. Also, I'm going to get in Jeremiah as well, Jeremiah 20. Let me pull it up real quick. Jeremiah chapter 20. All right, and scroll down to verse 14. All right, it says, "Cursed be the day wherein I was born. Let not the day wherein my mother bare me be blessed." Right? So we know, as the scriptures say, it's better to be in the house of mourning than to be in the house of mirth. Okay? Because really, Jeremiah, the whole book of Jeremiah pretty much was, like we talk about in Jeremiah 28, the prophets wrote and prophesied of things before time against many kingdoms. So we're prophesying against the downfall of these places that are ruling in wickedness. We're not worried about self-exaltation and self-worship. Okay, we really want this place to hurry up and get burnt down already. We're hastening the coming of the Lord, right? So I'll get the two examples where birthdays were celebrated, all right, and we're gonna see what's the correlation, or what's the common denominator in that. All right, the first example we're gonna get is Genesis chapter 40 and verse 20. All right, it says, I'll get straight to the point, and you should read this whole chapter, both of these chapters here. Genesis chapter 40 and verse 20, it says, "And it came to pass the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants." So what is something that we know about Pharaoh? There was never an Israelite Pharaoh, right? All of the pharaohs were Hamites, were heathens, right? So that's the first instance where a birthday was mentioned. You don't see no mentioning of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob celebrating their birthdays. Now, yes, you know how old you are. You know how old you are, but a celebration of birthdays, that's some pagan stuff, right? And then when you fast forward to the New Testament, and this will be the last verse that we get, is Matthew 14, right? Matthew chapter 14. And let me see here. I'll start at, how much time we got? Okay, I'll just get straight to the point of verse 6. It says, "But when Herod's birthday was kept," and read this whole chapter. If you know about this chapter, about John the Baptist, getting put to death, read this whole chapter, man. All right, because how he got put to death was basically on a request of a wicked demonic woman, and he would that basically Herod, this guy we're about to read about, he was trying to please her on his birthday, right? Because during birthdays, that's when all the folly comes out. That's when these women glow. They dress like, skanks, and parade the streets, and get drunk and belligerent. That's self-worship, man. The Lord's not dealing with that. So it says, But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter, and by the way, Herod was an Edomite. Okay, it says the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Now, you know, you can read the rest of the chapter, all right, but basically there was no instance where an Israelite observed his birthday and celebrated his birthday, where a righteous man of the Lord specifically. There's no instance in the Bible where it says we need to be celebrating, observing birthdays. Yes, you know how old you are when the time comes, okay? But, you know, celebration of birthdays is not Israelite culture. With that, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, and those a great millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect. Shalom.